How good are the rarest Pokemon in a game? This is a question I've answered in some form of variation, finding the rarest Pokemon in each region and seeing all the good, the bad, and the painful that this process endures. But beating Pokémon Black 2 using just the rarest Pokemon available is a very different process, with nearly double the Pokédex size of every game before it. This run requires a pretty different spin relative to everything else I've done, but it was an incredibly entertaining adventure, so I think it's for the best if we just jump straight into it. Now, most of these runs are pretty straightforward. I look up every encounter, determine which ones are the rarest, get it wrong a few times, but typically this process limits the team available in a game to a convenient roster of 6. This doesn't include Pokemon of a singular quantity, by the way, like legendaries or gifts or whatnot. Black 2, meanwhile, has one Pokemon that's particularly rare, and then a 9-way tie for second place, all found at 5%. These Pokemon are scattered rather evenly across the region, so as we progress through Unova, I'm thinking the best way to answer my opening question is with an ongoing tier list. We'll pick up every Pokemon eligible, with a few extra additions that I'll get onto later, and see how I think they stack up as a rare encounter, whether the hunt is worth it, whether the Pokemon is worth it, and we can map out the quality of rare encounters in the Unovan sequels, which all starts after picking the best Unovan starter and beelining to the Flockacy Ranch. The early game of Black and White 2 is genuinely tremendous, and rather coincidentally, this ties in perfectly to the first teammate we can get. With Cheren and his normal types being debatably the best first gym leader in the franchise, you still get a wide array of possible encounters at this point, with some really cool options. For the most part. And yet, while none of these more common Pokemon have a leg up in the gym fight waiting for you, if you dedicate your time to a more enduring hunt, you can find yourself the cream of the crop, Riolu. And what else really needs to be said here? Not only is Lucario one of the most beloved Pokemon in the franchise still to this day, with a cool dual typing and great stats, but it and its pre-evolution were incredibly uncommon up to this point. For it to be only accessible by the 6th gym in the Sinnoh region and the post-game in the original Black and White, to then be found at the start of your adventure is insanely cool. Even when approaching the first gym battle, keeping under the level cap of Cheren's ace, though Riolu doesn't have a fighting type attack to pummel through the competition, it still has access to the move Counter. You wouldn't want to rely just on this move for a majority of the run, but against Cheren's duo of physical attackers, all Riolu needs is sheer tenacity and an Oranberry to retaliate against any attack sent its way for a comfortable win. It's early days at this point, but what could the Riolu line ever be other than an S-tier Pokemon? Well, an S+ tier Pokemon, I guess. So that's where it's going. Here's where the run deviates a little bit though. The next 5% encounter isn't until we reach the bright lights of Castelia City. And though I'm confident our Soul Fighter could just steamroll through to that point, I figured it'd be a little boring. I think it's more interesting in cases like now to just find and catch the rarest Pokemon possible between gyms. As while the 10% rare encounter between Aspertia and Burgh City isn't among the rarest in Black 2, it makes the video more entertaining, especially because the areas between this section have so many cool Pokemon to find. You're able to get the Venipede line in Route 20, specifically in the Dark Grass, alongside charming Gen 1 Pokemon like Magnemite, Koffing, and Growlithe in the Verbank complex, as well as either Magby or Elekid depending on which version of the game you're playing. You truly have to think that no matter which of these Pokemon are the rarest at this point, all of these are a great addition to our entourage. Okay, don't hate me for this one, as if you've seen my run in Heart Gold, you'll know of my fondness for Dunsparce, a cromulent creature that doesn't do a whole lot, but that's all the more reason I find it so charming. However, there's a bit of a wrinkle to adding Dunsparce that sets the tone for the future. Trust me. There's a new mechanic in the Generation 5 games called Phenomena. Whenever a trainer takes a step in these games, there's a chance for grass to rustle, dust clouds to appear, shadows to cast, and water to ripple. I can't find the exact odds of how long it takes for these phenomena to appear, but it's anywhere between a reasonable amount to a goddamn waste of time. And unfortunately for me, some Pokemon, such as Dunsparce, are only found in rustling grass tiles. A 10% encounter can potentially be a bit frustrating, but running through the grass tends to give you immediate encounters one after the other. Phenomenon Pokemon, meanwhile, can have you running back and forth for a good long while, just for you to even have the chance to find something, which which, for Dunsparce, still was well under odds at least, so I can't complain too much, but it still felt like a pretty involved process, when I could have had at least 5 other cool Pokemon in its place in a much faster time. So Dunsparce's back was somewhat against the wall for this one, as it's pretty immediately outmatched by other options as well as its contemporary, but thankfully, Dunsparce has one trick up its sleeve, as always. Bowling. For as annoying as it was to obtain, Dunsparce still manages to find its way into my heart with its propensity to roll over the competition, and that's exactly what was awaiting the poison-type punk Roxy, yawning in the face of her coughing, followed by a single defense curl, bolsters our Landslug before a sequence of rollouts absolutely bulldozes Coughing and Whirlipede, striking through Roxy for an easy victory, and for that reason, that's why Dunsparce is going in the B tier. B, of course, standing for best. And for bowling. We had a pretty talented duo at our disposal, and now we were ready to venture out further beyond the southwest of Unova onto far bigger things. Well, not until we go to Pokestar Studios, of course, everybody's favourite part of the Unovan sequels, and one that we're definitely going to want to pay attention to. I've heard that Ash Ketchum is starring in a pretty pivotal role this time.
When we first started going out, we made love all the time. Now, because of the drug, you can no longer function as a man.
Is this when I get the gym badge? Oh, that emotional high really shook me to my core as we sailed off to the concrete jungle of Castelia City, where there was an even more strenuous pain for us to have to endure. Ladies, gentlemen, everybody and anybody in between, today isn't Muck Monday. I know. Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit choked up thinking about it. I know, that's a real shame. And while you may understandably dislike the video, click off my channel and dox my personal details, I do have something to offer you as an apology. The cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. Castelia Park is another hotspot for rare Pokemon, as in this grassy ring is the 5% chance to run into an Eevee, which, yeah. This guy might be the GOAT. Not only because the Gen 5 sprite for this guy is to die for, but because Eevee is so incredibly similar to the Lucario line. Until the Trophy Garden in Sinnoh the previous generation, you could only be bestowed an Eevee from an NPC, and while that's cool, for sure, I like gift Pokemon, the extra satisfaction about eventually finding a rare Pokemon really puts it over the edge for me. Of course, Eevee by itself isn't actually that useful in its baby form, it's what it eventually can become that makes it so much more wanted. And thanks to that, Eevee is going in the egg tier. But it's not the only rare Pokemon I wanted to include at this point too. Something that shocked me when looking at the list of encounters in this game is that in Route 4, home to so many heralded Unovan Pokemon, you only have a 5% chance to find a Scraggy. This one doesn't quite count as one of the rarest Pokemon, admittedly. At the Desert Resort you can find a Scraggy at double the encounter odds, but I still wanted to bring it up because I think it's so interesting. What was anywhere between a 20 to 40% encounter in the previous games is now isolated to the desert area at a much lower odds of finding. Scraggy is 5 times as rare as Trubbish in this area, which is why I'm adding it to the woke detected tier, but I also wanted to bring it up on the basis that I think it's cool that Pokemon across all generations have varying degrees of rarity. With such a huge Pokédex, I like that there's a pretty even spread for ever elusive Pokemon whenever they were introduced. So yeah, Scraggy shouldn't really count, but f it, it's my video, and I'll be using these two to take on the 3rd gym leader. Obviously, with a trio of bug types, our Dunsparce could bowl over Burgh, or alternatively, our newly evolved Lucario could completely tear it down by itself. Yet at this point, I wanted to see how far I could go battling with whatever new additions to the team I had, which, unfortunately, completely flipped the fight on our head. This no longer became a straightforward brawl, as Leavanny and Swadloon did decent work against us, but eventually I managed to put something together. Eevee's charming ability to growl at opponents neutered Burgh's lead into the ground, before chipping away at it until we fell. This opened the floor for Scraggy to come on in and set up with workups to boost our firepower, though even better is that when we do take out Swadloon, I learned that we had Moxie. This brutally powerful ability, which boosts our attack, combined with the move Payback on the Ace Leavanny, which doubles in power when we move second, leads to us getting an awesome one-hit KO. We'd toppled Burgh's final Dwebble not long after, and I'm so glad that I was able to beat the gym leader I made purposefully difficult for no real reason. And that's why I'm in the F tier. Still, we'd hit a pretty good rhythm at this point. The team I'd assembled so far had been fairly easy to acquire, and all interesting in some way, which made for a strong set when we had to face off against trainers like Colress. Even with his Steel-type entourage, we made it through fine with the team at our disposal, and we'd been flying through the game at this point, so I thought we'd get through Unova in no time at all. And then we hit Nimbasa City. And this, no joke, is one of the biggest hurdles I think I'll come across in this series of videos. Because heading east out of the city gives us access to a quaint little area called the Lostlorn Forest, home to 2 Pokemon for this run. The first of which is pretty simple, albeit a touch annoying. Combee is found in the tall grass at a 10% encounter rate, which has made an even bigger problem for us when a female Combee is only a 1 in 8 chance. We have a 1 in 80 opportunity to get our next teammate, which sounds horrible, except Vespiquen is its own unique encounter too, in the shaking grass spots at a 5% chance. I'm not quite sure which of these would be quicker, in all honesty. Both of them are a bit of an RNG nightmare, no matter which way you look at it, though ultimately I decided to endure the pain of running around in laps in nearby grass until we struck out on a Vespiquen in only 2 shaking spots. This definitely felt like a win, and though Vespiquen probably doesn't warrant the irritating means to obtain it, especially when you think about how many good bug types are introduced at this point in the franchise, it's nevertheless still cool enough for me to want to put it in the B+ tier, because it is a B plus Bs. Well, that was easy enough, and now all we've got left to find is just some random Pinsir. Well, that should be easy. Do we find it in dark grass, shaken spots, some other way, or... I was warned about hidden grottos before this video started, yet this was fresh off the hunt for Munchlax in Pokemon Platinum. So to say I was underestimating this next hunt would be putting it lightly. But man, shit. This sucked. Let me go back to square one. Firstly, in Black and White 2, there are these hidden areas in certain routes called hidden grottos that are home to either an item or a Pokemon. Certain Pokemon only appear in certain grottos, and Pinsir is one of them, found exclusively in the Lostlorn Forest grotto at a 0.75% encounter rate. I may have well missed 1 or 2 in this process, but I'm pretty confident that this is the only hidden grotto encounter we need to deal with in this run. The massive issue though, is that this isn't just a 0.75% encounter, because, like the phenomena in these games, you have to run around and wait for a hidden grotto encounter to appear. This time, though, the player has to run 256 steps to regenerate a grotto, which doesn't sound terrible. Except that's a lie, because the player has to run 256 steps to have a chance of regenerating a grotto, which occurs 5% of the time, according to Bulbapedia. This added dimension to encountering hidden grotto Pokemon, if you consider the regeneration odds, makes this a number I couldn't be bothered to calculate. It's that big, just running back and forth, over and over, to enter an empty grotto with nothing inside it most of the time. And like, what else is there to do? I can't just put in a cheat code that makes the grotto regenerate every time you re-enter, as well as speed up the whole process on my very real DS. Oh wait. Yeah, okay, so I'm cheating, but at least you know why. Because I have limited time on this earth, and I'm not spending it running 5,000 steps in Pokemon Black 2 just to pick up a potion. However, to everyone who has done this legitimately, fair props to you. You're going in the GOAT tier, along with those who like and subscribe to my channel, thank you by the way, because this was my reaction by the end of this ordeal. Oh, thank God. That was a waste of time. Do not ever do this for Pinsir. I don't know if the best feeling for encountering something is general regret and relief at it being over, but at the very least, Pinsir is a very cool Pokemon. It's coincidentally quite a rare find over every generation preceding it, and with its hidden ability Moxie, we have 2 Pokemon with some absolute chutzpah staring down the rest of the game. I mean, really, what else could we have had instead of Pinsir that we would have much preferred? Pinsir's going in the B- tier. It at the very least makes light work of the electric specialist Elisa, thanks in large part to the dig TM you can pick up nearby, letting a bad beetle rip through her entire team one after the next. Vespiquen was there too, by the way, and kept me assured that the rare Pokemon available to us can absolutely hold their own when it's down to them. It just might not be that worth it sometimes. That's pretty much the dividing line right now in this run. Rare Pokemon whose values are worth the hunt, and rare Pokemon whose value is pretty debatable. That being said, the second we hit the groovy vibes of Driftveil City, we get introduced to a whole new group of Pokemon for this run. Because Route 6 is also home to 2 more additions to the team, and there's no funny business anymore with these. Just simple 5% encounters that are unabashedly rare in these games. One of them is a version exclusive of sorts, as while its counterpart is quite common to encounter, yet rare in White 2, you inversely have a 1 in 20 chance in Black 2 to find yourself a Caroblast. Yep, it's back, baby. While Shelmet is clearly going in the same tier as us, Caroblast gets to join the GOATs. No questions asked. I mean, you might have some questions, like why and why? But much like Dunsparce, I've always been charmed by this little guy, and I can't help but feel like it could save the world if I needed it to. That's very much my personal bias though, as objectively, this Pokemon is a little bit stinky, if I'm being honest. So at this point in the run, when we're going to be facing off against Clay and his excellent trio of ground types, we need something more. A tandem partner. One who can pull their weight and match up to the fearsome firepower of an Excadrill. Dude, cover those up, please. Yeah, okay, so let's look at this on paper. Is Cast Form rare? Yeah, generally. A gift in the Hoenn games and as rare as Eevee in the Sinnoh games makes this quite a difficult Pokemon to obtain naturally. Is it a good encounter though? Why did you ask that? You may wonder if any Pokemon so far is genuinely worse than Caroblast in this run. But yeah, no, I genuinely say that Cast Form annoyed me more. Not only because it's got lame stats, is publicly indecent, and is a fairly boring gimmick, but also because it's another Pokemon only found in rustling grass. It's just as rare as Vespiquen, which didn't take me much time at all, but I think Turnabout was completely fair play for this one, because I spent so goddamn long trying to get this little pervert. Seriously, you want to know how long I was here for? 11 years. Yeah, I first started recording this video conveniently in 2014. And goddamn, I love all of these YouTubers on screen right now. This Pokemon is nothing special, yet it wasted my goddamn time, and for that reason, I think it's fair to say that it deserves to go in the Cast Form tier. But despite that damning assessment I've made, inexplicably, Clay and his trio of Earth's finest Pokemon still fail to step up to Plankton and his busty friend. Leading with Caroblast means that we can fire off surprisingly powerful bug buzzes to rip through the Dark-type Predator in just a few turns, and once it immediately falls to a Metal Claw from Clay's ace, it clears the court for Cast Form to emerge. So long as we don't get crit, we're able to transform into its water form with Rain Dance, before a single Weather Ball washes it up in no time. Even the Sand Slash that follows isn't able to ride the wave that Cast Form creates, meaning that we somehow prevailed with one of the most unsatisfying Pokemon I've had to obtain up to this point. It just took so long, and you know what? I'm going to do a time jump. Let's skip the 6th gym for now. The exact same problem happened again when we were hunting for our Pokemon before the 7th gym, at the Village Bridge location by the shores. We have to wait for the water to start rippling in order to encounter a Lapras. Much like Cast Form, this is a 5% encounter, and much like Cast Form, I have aged well beyond my years since starting to hunt for it. Seriously, I was so sick of hunting for Pokemon in this run by the end of it, arguably more than Platinum, somehow. That being said, it's obviously a good Pokemon that does at least feel somewhat worth the hunt, and it's all we needed to conquer the Dragon-type gym leader Draden, thanks to its Ice typing and power behind it, meaning that when it's all said and done, it only feels right for Lapras to go in the Artibuco tier. And it's not the only Pokemon that I think is great that we've caught so far. There's certainly been a bit of a lame duck or two with a few uncommon creatures, but most of them across the board are really valuable members of any team, and altogether, they really shine. This is especially evident in one such Pokemon's case when we go back in time to our journey to Mistroughton City. Up to this point in the recording process, I wanted to use every unique Pokemon exclusively found in the area prior to each gym fight, and this one had a really awesome duo. There isn't a 5% encounter anywhere between Chargestone Cave to the Celestial Tower, yet in the dark grass of Route 7, you have a 7.5% chance of encountering both Zangoose and Seviper, two Pokemon often locked away both in singular locations at low encounter rates, as well as frequently pulled apart from one another that also canonically fucking hate each other. As such, I was determined to turn these two fighters into lovers against Skylar and her flying types, and that didn't work. Sadly, she just has a really solid trio of fighting types at her helm for these two rivals to really make headway against her. They're fast enough and powerful enough to dig into her HP, but worst of all is her Skarmory. Bulky as anything, with fantastic type coverage against our poisonous pair. In spite of my perseverance, Skylar was the first trainer I had to break rank over in our approach of taking her down. However, though we'd had a good run, it did bring me back to the central point of this run. The quality of our rare Pokemon, as one could finally break out of its shell. The Swiss Army Eevee sat in our box finds a brilliant use case with a Thunderstone found in the Electrified Cave, giving us a Jolteon who'd serve an invaluable role going into the late game of Black 2. This is immediately demonstrated when our recently acquired pair learn about voyeurism in the final fight against Skylar, as Jolteon is able to zap through her Ace Swanna and menace Skarmory without much resistance. That just goes to show how good we have it, though if you had any doubts, we get a fantastic second showing when we face off against Marlon. I mean, yeah, it wasn't too shocking to see us thunder through his triple threat of water types, but if you're wondering why not use the rarest Pokemon in the lead up to Humilau City instead, that's a brilliant question. Well, let's just see what we have available in the Seaside Cave and... Huh. Well, look, I do really like Shockle. Maybe not on par with other rare Pokemon, and maybe not particularly helpful in anything deeper than a shallow puddle, but I'm sure it'll find some good use in the future. Though hey, it's not the last rare Pokemon we can get at this point. Who else can we get in Route 22? Lunatone, can you do me a solid and just sit on it? Yeah, so there's been a bit of a discrepancy here in how good I feel about these guys. Shockle surely goes in the B tier with Dunsparce. I just want to keep things pretty straightforward with this list if you couldn't tell. But Delibird is a bit harder to place. Maybe we need some empirical evidence of its usefulness in a fight against a wild Pokemon. I knew having the Mercer tier was a good idea. Anyway, I think you get the point by now. I wouldn't trust these two to run a bath, so mercifully it's great that Jolteon can come and save us at the final stage of this run. Although we do still have such an eclectic mix of recruits that instill me with varying degrees of confidence looking at the final leg of Pokemon Black 2, though we had a gauntlet of 4 tough trainers, preceding a top tier champion in the franchise. Before all of that, we need to save the world from Ghetsis' Team Plasma, and sadly, I don't think Caroblast is going to be able to cut it by itself, though he himself, the embittered old codger, still doesn't have quite any idea what he's up against. He manages to summon an almighty ice-type dragon fused with the power of Zekrom to completely stampede our team. And we beat him in 2 punches with our Lucario, though the more dominant performance comes to light against Ghetsis' champion caliber team, as though his 6 savages are something that have frightened me in the past. We have 3 bugs to show the breadth of our team. Vespiquen carries a defensive capability paired with its offense to outlast Ghetsis Cofagrigus. His ace Hydreigon might instill fear through the hearts of everyone, yet our humble Shuckle can use its utility to neuter the pseudo-legend with Power Split. And the final pillar of our team is shown through Pinsir's sheer offense. When the gloves can come off, we not only finish the Dark Dragon, but we just continue to build momentum that nothing else can withstand. We can outlast, outmaneuver, and outperform anything in our way with our team, and that shows all the good we've recruited in our run so far. So, I guess when you think about the question, the rarest Pokemon in a game truly can cover a great binary. I mean, look at this tier list. Look how quantifiably and objectively varied this list of Pokemon available to us are. Oh, wait, I forgot to rank Zangoose and Seviper. Artibuco tier. But I guess that's the beauty of a Pokédex and Pokemon in general. There are common Pokemon, and there are rare Pokemon. There are fairly accessible Pokemon that are now quite elusive, or there are forever cagey creatures that you can come across. There are some Pokemon that are so beloved that toe a line of rarity to make every part of the Pokemon experience worthwhile, and then you have ones that are on a list. But every Pokemon is loved in some respect. And so while some of the hunts in this game were particularly painful, it's down to you if it's worth it or not. I still think when it's all said and done, this is a pretty fun roster to try and beat a game with, all with their own unique strengths and values that meant that we kind of breezed through the Elite Four, in all honesty. We had enough in our wheelhouse to get through to the final leg of this run. But like always, let's see if our rarest can live up to the hype to become Hall of Famers, against the champion of Pokemon Black 2, Iris. Here we go. Hydreigon is terrifying, but I think we've got a good lead here. Okay, I'm hoping this doesn't do over half. Yeah, okay. Good hold. Good hold. Good damage too. Just got to try and avoid a crit. There we go. Just means we're on good health. First, Dragon down. Okay, this guy desperately wants to Focus Blast. Right, Lapras, you've served us well this run. You may waste my time, but send it strong. Maybe Focus Blast miss? Oh, Rock Slide, the more reliable move. Yeah, this probably kills. Yep. Do you heal? Alright, come on, Cast Form. We might as well get you something. Yep. The forecast is clear skies for Bungus. Oh, okay. You live this, right? I should have just brought Caroblast. Who's next? Interesting choice. Okay, thanks for the feed. Thanks for coming, bro. Ooh, okay. I think you're gonna go for Earthquake. So I think I have the answer. Yep. You can't kill me, I don't think. At least for a little while. Yeah. This is gonna get a little scary. Now this is cheap. This is cheap. We've got a boosted ace staring us down. However, so long as this doesn't crit. Okay. Now Iris, just ignore that and go for it again. Ooh. You clever clogs. Now I might be running into a little bit of a problem. Does the AI just... Uh-oh. I think I've fucked myself a bit here. I'm going to keep doing this and hope you get it wrong. Okay, never mind. All part of my big brain plays. She never saw it coming. Well, it is, I think, 3v2. Time to go for you. Archeops is scarily powerful and scarily fast. But we have an electric gem. Yeah, there we go. And lastly is a Lapras. And as much as I'm sure Big Thief could take it up by itself, let's just try and do a layup. You know what, Jolteon? Just rest up a little bit, bud, because there is someone who I want to win this fight with more. Come on, Pinsir, tank this. Come on, tank it, tank it, tank it. Well, this was just like, this is my whole ending. My whole ending was going to be like a big monologue about like using the rarest one of all. Wow. Pinsir, we've sure had some fun times finding the rarest Pokemon and all. Now, fuck that Pinsir, bro. That Pinsir wasted my goddamn time. Lucario, you were the GOAT from day one. And now we are champion with a completely planned final move. I forgot the name of the word. I'm just stupid. It's late. I'm going to bed.